So this is a demonstration of how to do the steeking of the A Luminary Affair Collar that's worked in Spincycle Yarns, Trine and Dream State, and it's a worsted weight project. So we have a steek on each side of the collar, and we will go through the process of how to achieve this band here with an opening. We'll do that in 3 parts with an optional 4th part. First of all, we'll pick up stitches and work on the ribbing, on the rib band. Secondly, we will secure the steek with a crochet hook. And thirdly, we'll cut it open. And the optional part is for people like me who are nervous about unraveling. You can add a ribbon and sew it on to stop anything coming loose. So I'll start with the first part, which is picking up stitches for knitting the edge band. I will join yarn, and to begin I'll explain my approach to this. I like to pick up and knit a stitch for every row worked, because that, in my opinion, creates this very smooth edge. Typically you have the row of a stitch, the row length of a stitch shorter than the width of it, which means that in patterns you would be instructed to skip every 3rd or every 4th stitch, but I've found that that can create a jagged look. So to avoid that, I pick up and knit a stitch for every row worked, and then on the wrong side, or on the 2nd round, if I work in the round, I decrease the necessary amount of stitches to adjust the number of stitches so that it doesn't look like a ruffle, so to speak. So that's what we'll do here. We'll pick up and knit a stitch for every row worked. We are making sure that the work is facing right side, and we will begin at the center, and we'll find where the selvage stitch meets the rest of it. I have purposefully left 3 knit stitches here at the end of each, and at the start and end of each row, so it's easy to find where we're picking things up. And later on, this selvage stitch becomes the first stitch that was worked in the steek section, so we'll continue to pick up along here until we reach the other side where we worked flat, and it returns to being the selvage stitch. The first is always a little bit tricky because there's no row to hold it, so I sort of hack it by picking up in the stitch itself. In this case it's the bind off, but it would be the same with the cast on. And then from then on I can easily find where I should be picking up and knitting. It looks something like that. And you should see a very smooth, nice end of ribbing here on the right side, and on the wrong side you can see a little bumpier seam, but that's okay because we won't really see this. I will go all the way around, and then I'll show you the decrease row as well before going into the ribbing pattern and completing the edge band. And just in case this is interesting, this is how it looks when we're picking along the steek section. So I should clearly have 1 stitch in main color visible, and I can fold it like so and pick up along the top there like so. Now I've picked up all the way around and I'm ready to start the decrease row and go into the ribbing. It's probably worth mentioning that you need circular needles, or you will need to have at least 3 straight very long needles, otherwise it's going to be difficult to do this. And the other thing is, the reason we're doing this part before securing and cutting the steek, because ideally once you're at this stage you really don't want to disturb these stitches anymore. And you can see that just by picking up, I'm stretching the main color so much that the contrast color is becoming distorted and of all sorts. It was fairly even before, so we really don't want to do this after we've already secured it, because that risks pulling it in the wrong way and something might unravel. So we want to do this part before we even think about addressing the steek and the cut. So right, so here we go. Let's decrease these to the required number of stitches. This is the pattern states that you need a certain number of stitches. If you picked up less or more, this second row is also your chance to adjust the stitch count so that it matches what's needed in the pattern. Most importantly, so that you can start with 2 knit stitches and end with 2 knit stitches, so it's a multiple of 4 plus 2. I will always slip the first stitch to create a nicer edge here, nicer selvage stitch here, because this will remain exposed, and to get rid of those little bumps that form if you knit the stitch on every row. So I'm slipping the first, then I'm purling and purling 2 together, and I'll keep doing that all the way to the end. That means I'm decreasing every 4th stitch, which will create a nice and even flush look here. Once I will return when I've done the whole band and bound off, and we'll talk about securing the steek next. Now we finished the bands, we are ready to secure the steek. And for that there are various methods, but I like to use the crochet method. And typically I would choose a yarn that is smaller in weight, because there's already a lot going on, and I'm using lace weight merino. Any sticky yarn could do. Also the color doesn't matter, because you don't really see this area, it's not exposed, so whatever you have at hand. And because we're using thinner yarn, we also need a crochet hook that's much smaller. So this is a worsted weight project, but I'm using lace weight yarn to secure the steek. And by securing, I mean to be able to cut through the middle here. That's where we'll be cutting. We need to make sure that on each row the main color and the contrast color are keeping in place. So we have to tie sort of these 2 legs together on each row. And once you've picked the center stitch, it's easy to identify it here by the middle column that is in contrast color. Some steeks use a chessboard pattern, some use this vertical columns, but the most important is to make sure that there's that along the center where we'll be cutting, there is 1 contrast and 1 main color stitch that we can crochet together, and that way we keep it in place and it's not going to move when we do the cutting. So this is how it looks in practice. I do a slip knot, and I will try and secure the yarn in place by doing a few slip stitches. No, I'm not sure if they're called slip stitches. Apologies if that's not right. But we're not even doing the full crochet. pulling the loop out as oops, I lost it. No, it's there. So I've gotten to the steek column, and this is where I begin to crochet together the two legs of the adjacent stitches in the two colors. So I think my last bind off column was in main color, so that's why both of these legs are the same color. But from then on I have two legs each in different color, and I just follow along like so until don't do that. All the way to the top. Now I'm approaching the very top, so I'll do the last couple of stitches here, and to really secure and make sure this little tiny yarn doesn't unravel, I'll do what I did at the start and do a few more along the top edge there before because you wouldn't want to cut in the knot that secures this yarn, because then all that securing was for nothing. That should do it. Now I've done one side, I have to do the same on the other side. This is what it looks like close up, so you can see. It's hard to see because it's the same color, but this tiny thread is the securing part, and on the in the middle of the center stitch you will see these bumps there as well. This is will be cutting, so I'll now address the other side in the same way I did, just going in the opposite direction, and then we'll be ready to cut. Now that I've finished both sides, and this is what it looks like, we'll be cutting through the middle here. You should be able to see the steek yarn on both sides of the stitch, and we need sharp little scissors like so, and carefully not to cut in the steek yarn. We start one by one and cut, 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 cut. All the way to the top. This is what it looks like on the other side. Things aren't immediately falling apart, which is great, but there is no going back. It's now cut, so we'll have to just wear it. This last step of adding a ribbon is entirely optional, but I believe it's necessary in my case. But it's recommended if you're using superwash wool or wool that won't easily felt, or that has some slippery plant fibers in the mix like linen or silk. Then it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm sure there are many ways of adding a ribbon. It's probably straightforward, but here is how I would do it. If you can follow along if you like. If not, thank you so much for watching the rest of the video.